Hey all, Paintmarine here with another Paintmarine's bookshelf. Finally finished Dark Imperium Plague Wars by Guy Haley, or Halley, not sure which way he says it, probably Haley. But yeah, so finally finished this. This took way too long to read for me. Not because it was bad or anything, just because life has been so hectic and crazy lately. But finally got around to finally finishing it. I had like 4 chapters left, and it was like, I don't know, like midnight one night, and I was just like, I just gotta finish it. There's just too much going on. I just can't. Like, I hate when you get near the end of the book and there's just so much going on. You want to keep reading, keep reading, keep reading. And I finally decided one night I just gotta push through it, get this done, so I can get this review up, this kind of overview and everything, and go from there. So, with that being said, of course, spoiler alerts will be abound in here. I'm not gonna go too in depth in detail as far as spoilers and stuff go. But there will be some, and then I will have a kind of a major spoiler alert, kind of slash, I don't know what you call it, like theory, I guess, kind of at the end. That I will again warn you again that it's coming. So if you don't want to have kind of a major thing that happens in the book spoiled, then I would just stop at that point. But if you've already read it, then of course you can go from there. So. Basically, this is the continuation of the other Dark Imperium book. I think I'm not sure how many are going to be in this series. I think they've said at least 3, so I think there's going to be at least one more. It was like I said, it was a really good read. There's kind of the ending. Kind of part of the ending was kind of frustrating because it really ended on one of those big like cliffhanger things that you're just kind of like finally they get to the climax and then it's like, oh, to be continued. But yeah, there's definitely a few things in here I want to point out that I found interesting. I made a few notes here and there. I've got cards, a notebook here, so I'm just going to go into them in like chronological order of page number. So maybe kind of jumping around on the subject matter. I may be like talking about one thing here and then jump to this other thing and it has nothing to do with what I just talked about, and then go to the next thing and I'm like, oh wait, that has something to do with something I already talked about. So I'll try to link it all back around, but just bear with me on that. And yeah, so basically we have, with most of these books, there's kind of like multiple different main characters and some different story arcs happening. You definitely have, I guess, the Chaos side with the Plague Marines and Mortarion and Nurgle and all that kind of stuff going on, and then you have the Ultramarines, the Primarch, Roboti, Gilliman, Robbie G. So you have like his story arc and all his things. So you basically have like the simple 2 sides, good versus evil, but then they always kind of break down too. Where on the Chaos side of things, it kind of follows the story of this demon Kugoth, I believe his name was, or how you may say it. So it kind of follows his path where he's trying to make this like this most epic plague disease thing that's going to be able to be a Primarch killer and all that, and his hope to please Nurgle and be be like ascended through the ranks type of thing. So there's kind of that thing going on, and then you have Mortarion's kind of story arc and his whole plan, and then you have what's his name, Typhus, the plague Terminator Plague Lord guy, and his whole thing, where basically him and Mortarion are kind of at odds, trying to get better favor for themselves with Nurgle, and so like while they're kind of working together for the same plan, they're also kind of working against each other. And you kind of see that in general altogether with Chaos is while they're all like kind of working for the same goal, there's a lot of infighting and a lot of kind of backstabbing to try to elevate themselves within the Garden of Nurgle or whatever. So there's a lot of that going on. Then on the Imperium side, there's kind of I guess 3 story arcs. There is kind of the Primarch story and all his thing. Then there is a Primaris Space Marine, I don't know, I'm going to call him Justin. It was like Justinian or Justirion or something like that. But basically, he was with the Unnumbered Sons, fought, through the Indominus Crusade, and then when Gilliman started separating all the Primaris Marines up from the Unnumbered Sons, you're going here, you're going there, whatever. Well, he sent him to the Nova Marines, and he's basically having this big conflict with trying to fit in with them. He doesn't feel like they're family. Like most of the Primaris, a lot of them wanted to go to their actual, home chapter and not necessarily go to a successor or become a successor chapter. They all wanted to serve their actual founding chapter. So he felt hurt by not getting to go serve in the Ultramarines, and they have some sort of like a chamber thing they put them in to try to like kind of retrain them while they're sleeping, regenerating, whatever you want to call it. And he just keeps talking about how artificial it feels, and it just doesn't feel like his home. He has no connection with the Nova Marines and stuff. And that's kind of his path, is just how much of an outsider he feels in this chapter. And near the end, he starts to kind of come around in a way, because there's another Primaris Marine that ends up in his squad that has been with the Nova Marines a bit longer and actually kind of feels that brotherhood a little bit, but not in the same way as like the Marines that were actually brought into and indoctrinated into the Nova Marines from the beginning. But he just goes on to say that like they're all there to serve, and he finds that his best way to serve is to realize this is his place now. And it is really interesting. But yeah, so there's that story arc, and then there's the other one of Matthew, Father Matthew. He's like I don't know what they call him. Like he's basically like the Pope right now, because Gilliman doesn't like the Imperial cult, and but he recognizes it as a necessary evil right now. So he appoints this kind of nobody person to become like the head of the Imperial Church, to kind of just give hope and kind of keep people in line. And while he doesn't believe that his father is a god and all that, he just is basically I don't know, like just letting them carry on for now anyway, and just because he doesn't want to rock the boat necessarily, because he realizes how in the thousands of years since he's been gone, how this religion has really taken root and is part of the culture, and he can't just uproot it right away. Like he has to do it very carefully and methodically to basically get rid of it and turn it around. But in the meantime, he appoints this like I said, Pope figurehead. And so there's kind of, his story definitely intermingles with the Primarchs, but then there's another Commissar Davios that he starts to have interaction with a little bit, and this Sister of Battle, which her name was like Idothan or something like that. I could probably find it fairly quickly. It is... this part at the end here. Okay. Iolanthe. Iolanthe? It's Iolanth. Iolanthe or Iolanthe, something like that. Anyway, so she's like a Sister Superior, and there's definitely some intermixing there. So, kind of the quick synopsis. So, obviously they're fighting on Tyros, I believe it was. Man, this is killing me. Is there a chapter list in here? Probably not, no. Anyway, so they're fighting on a planet. I can't remember what it is. The only one I can think of right now is Ajax, because Ajax was in the first Dark Imperium book, and it's definitely made mention, and there's a small part where the demon stuff kind of takes place on there, where that Kugoth guy's still trying to make his potion thing. But anyway, then at the end they basically mention Ajax again. So the next book will most likely heavily involve the planet Ajax. So anyway, so the planet, I can't remember the planet they're on now, but they're on the war, they're on the planet, and they're basically trying to turn the tide. and Gilliman has sent for this super huge fortress called Galatan. It's like this giant, ancient, mysterious star fortress to basically come and turn the tide. And so he has the Nova Marines are on board this fortress, and it basically has to travel through the warp and get there. And as soon as they get there, they get boarded and all that. And so it's like this big tug of war struggle. Like once the planet or once the star base or whatever comes into range of the planet, who will be in control of it to basically turn the tide of the war. Meanwhile, through all this girl shows up. They keep describing her as a very young girl. So like as I'm reading, I was picturing anywhere from like 12 to 15 year kind of range. Like very young girl, like doesn't wear any armor, or like I think the first time they find her, she was naked. Or she's just wearing like a robe, or most of the time it's like they keep describing like this like robe that just barely drapes over her, and she's really not she's not suited for fighting in a war where biological weaponry is everywhere. But she basically has like this incredible psychic powers that are like just she's able to do like crazy things, but as soon as she does them, it just completely exhausts her. She passes out, is like completely just done. There's a scene where I can't remember what kind of machine or plague something was like pouring all this like chemical bile whatever stuff, acid stuff or whatever, and she like is into the fray, and it just as soon as it like covers the Marines and the Imperial Guard and this I think Davios was there, the commissar, they're in like crystal clear disease free water like they've never been in before. It just immediately turns to this water, purified water. So like there's a whole big mystery like who is she? So the sisters, battle sisters take her and they do like this whole like test to see if she's a witch. She passed all these tests, which basically is like this big torture thing. They don't go into detail on what exactly the tests are, but later it's definitely hinted that she was basically tortured in all these different ways to see if she was a witch or some sort of agent of chaos. Which, while it's funny, like they kind of like say, yes, she passed the test, but nothing is for certain. Like they're still not convinced that she might be something devious. So there's that, and so there's that kind of overall arcing story that everything kind of comes together at the end, the final battle. Kind of a spoiler alert here, kind of not a major one, but kind of a big one at the end of right before the climactic scene or climactic battle, or whatever. It is Gilliman facing off against Septicus the Seventh. He's like one of the plague. I can't remember what they call them, like the plague lords or whatever those. There's a model of them, like the big, gross-looking dude, Lords of Plague or something, and it's kind of just not going anywhere. And then anyway, like there's like this whole ploy to get a drop of his blood. I think it was to use in that Kugath potion disease thing he's making. So if it has a drop of his blood, then it will be better suited to attacking. A Primarch and being the Primarch killer disease that he wants it to be. So anyway, going with that, during the fight though, there's like somehow they kind of get through his defense, injure him, there's that drop of blood, and in that process they also get him like these psychic bindings and get him kind of captured. In that moment, Mortarion finally shows up. He doesn't want to face his brother otherwise until he's like captured. So I really found that as kind of like excuse my language, but a real bitch move on Mortarion to just kind of like hang back, watch all this going down, and once his brother was captured, then he like flaps down on his little moth wings and is like, "Oh, hey brother, look at you, you're captured, I've got the upper hand." And yeah, there's this whole exchange back and forth and everything. So we all get more into kind of the major kind of climax spoiler here in a minute. But yeah, so that's kind of the basic overview. Again, they're fighting over, a planet, and Gilliam is trying to get his brother to come out the whole time, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, there was another kind of story arc that kind of just jumped in kind of late when they're like making a big assault on the planet, is where it kind of follows an Imperial Knight, or not Imperial Knight, a Reaver Titan, and its battle and the pilot and how it's integrated. And at first, it was a little bit I was kind of like, oh, these are long and boring kind of pages right now. But it did definitely get interesting once they got more into the fray of it. And there's like these plague tower things they're trying to take down. And so it definitely picked up. But it was a little jarring at first because it kind of came out of nowhere. And then I was just like, why are we talking about these Titans? And like, they're like really in the end, it didn't have any. It honestly really had no impact on really any of the lower stories, or we would say main story arcs, and it really didn't have any kind of an impact on the overall story arc, other than it was just there, kind of like it almost felt like a filler or another just short story thrown in there. It was not really anything, but it was entertaining at least. I've never read a book that focused on the Titans or Imperial Knights for that matter. So it was different, and it was like I said, very entertaining and interesting because, like I said, I'd never read those kind of books. So it was definitely cool to read from that viewpoint. So next, I'll dive into those kind of interesting points I found along the way, and then from there, I will jump into, like I said, the kind of the overall big spoiler ending theory kind of thing from it. So, so the first thing I have written down is page 106, and it says all Primaris. So I'm sure this isn't a thing that now. There's a lot of things in here that I wrote down I found interesting that had to do with the Primaris, mostly because I am one of those the sky is falling people where I do think 40K, since its inception of age, since this new iteration has come out, it has been Age of Sigmar, or it had been Warhammer Fantasied. Like the end times came with, what was that called? There's those 3 books that came out right when Cadian broke. The Gathering Storm. The Gathering Storm was the end times for 40K, and then 8th edition was Age of Sigmar. We see it as definitely, I mean, we all know it, that the rules are very similar to Age of Sigmar now with like 3 pluses. It definitely makes it easier to play and for people to get in. But now with Primaris Marines are basically the new Stormcast, but the difference is they just didn't delete the whole back history, story, and lore and just get rid of everything. Instead, they're doing a phase out. I think it's a 10-year phase out because it would be less noticeable and more people will be more and more on board than just canking it. It could even be a 5-year. We're already about to hit the 2-year mark here, and they've already moved stuff pretty quickly. So it could even be a 5-year plan. I keep saying 10 because I think that will make the pill easier to swallow, because by the time we get to 10, everybody will have already replaced or gotten rid of old models, and we'll only have the new stuff. But it could be as short as 5, because I could see, they're a company and they need to make money fast, and they want that turnaround to be fast, and 10 years is a little bit too long of a game, to play. So I could see it. Realistically, it's probably 5, but I could see, we'll say 5 to 10 years. So anyway, so I look in these books, and you saw in Dark Imperium, they definitely called out a lot of units that did not exist, and then shortly thereafter, we got them. Plague War has been out for a good while now, and like I said, I am just now getting down to finishing it, but there continues to be call-outs to this Primaris change to where the Primaris are becoming the mainstay in the lore. So to me, that says that is GW signaling the end is coming for regular Space Marines, whether we want to believe it or not, and whether it's coming soon or not, it is coming. I swear it's a matter of time. But let's jump in here and see. So the first one, I have 106, all Primaris. Okay, so this paragraph right here, this is like key right here. So this is when Justinian, or whatever his name is, Justin, we'll say, first gets to the Nova Marines. So most Nova Marines were of the older Adeptus Astartes type. They were present in Ultramar at nearly full strength, having kept recruiting the whole time they were engaged in the war. There were only a couple of dozen Primaris Marines in the chapter at present. But he wondered how long it would be before every Nova Marine was a Primaris Marine. So, again, right there, that's to me that is signaling. We are already seeing Calgar undergo Primarisization, I guess. And so we know old Marines can become Primaris, and we know, like, if you're recruiting new people, new Space Marines, why not just make them what is considered the new standard, the new best? Why make them old? So any new recruits or new anything coming in is going to be Primaris. The old are going to die out, and the new are going to get replaced by Primaris. It's just the way it is, and I think it's plain right here. All right, so then we have 111. No Nova Marine, it says. So Justinian. His name is Justinian Paris. Okay. No imagination could have predicted how his life turned out. He had been many things in a short space of time spread over millennia. Little of it seemed plausible, if he thought about it. But if he did not know who he was, he knew what he was. No matter how awkward he felt, the sense of displacement did not change that. He was Sergeant Justinian Paris, Primaris Space Marine, a loyal servant of the Emperor. But he was no Nova Marine. So, as we see, he's still struggling, and he is not, like, he identifies more and is accepting of the fact that he's just a Primaris Space Marine at the end of the day, but he is not going to accept this adoptive chapter, if you will. He is a Nova Marine, or he is no Nova Marine. He is just a Primaris Space Marine. So next I have page 172. It says flyers. That was one thing they mentioned in Dark Imperium. There was talk of the Overlord, which is like supposedly dwarfs a Thunderhawk. It's a Primaris ship that dwarfs a Thunderhawk, so that was interesting there. We still haven't seen it. If it's going to come, it's going to come from Forge World, but that thing is going to be massive. I'm thinking like Manta, Tau Manta, massive. Like that, when I saw the Manta in person for the first time, it was so glorious and so amazing. And so I know that Forge World could do it, could make an Overlord that is just ginormous and amazing. So let's see here. We got 172 flyers. So this one, I'm just kind of like trying to read where I was talking more, and it only makes mention of a flyer, but it doesn't actually give it a name or really much further description about how big it is or anything. It just says, so now this is the Devios. He's the commissar, so they could be talking about a Valkyrie here because they are two-hulled, and that's what the description says. But it never really says that it's a Valkyrie, but seeing as he is an Imperial Guard, it most likely is a Valkyrie, but one can hope that maybe it is some other flyer. It just says, roaring jet engines started him from his misery. A two-hulled gunship blasted overhead, guns barking and missiles streaking from its wings, and came to a hovering stop. Space Marines leapt from its open doors, guiding their grav chutes into the heart of the enemy. They were of the Primaris type, skull-faced warriors with long knives. More wearing flight packs rocketed in after a giant aircraft, guns blazing. So, further craft flew in, roaring to stop and putting down Adeptus Astartes and heavier armor deployed. So it doesn't say those are Primaris or not, but it does specifically say the Primaris type, Space Marines rather. Oh yeah, it does say they were the Primaris type, skull-faced, so Reavers. Reavers are being deployed from a two-hulled or a twin-hulled flyer. Now, that's why I guess I forgot how the rest of the paragraph I read at the time, but this is why I definitely know I wrote this down because that does not sound like a Valkyrie. Valkyries don't carry Marines, so we have a two-hulled gunship with Space Marines leaping from the doors with grav chutes on. And they're the Primaris type. So a Primaris flyer here that is a troop transport. So I think we will see that for sure. I definitely think we'll see a smaller transport, kind of like the one I converted on Facebook on my Facebook page. I think we'll see something like that, like a smaller transport and a flyer transport, and maybe even a flyer just like aircraft fight, like a fighter aircraft, kind of like the Storm Talon or the Storm or the I think it's the Storm Hawk is the other variant that they made. So I definitely think we will see flyers for sure. All right, so 188. I think this was one that has kind of a jab made. It says experience quote. Let's see. All right. Excuse me. I'm remembering this. Was that one? Yeah, 188. Man. Trying because there's an exchange between the Primaris Space Marine and what's his name, Sycaris. Basically, he was saying can you guys even fight? Yeah. So Sycaris, it says, you Primaris Marines are overconfident, said Sycaris. He didn't look at either Primarch or the Tetrarch as he spoke, but stared out at the Sican plains. Theoreticals of certain victory preclude the formulation of practicals that will counter defeat. And then Felix just says, I simply state what any man can see. We are a more powerful army. We will beat him, said Felix. My own experience has taught me that sentries cannot be relied on, said Sycaris. Yeah, so it was very much kind of a jab that you don't know what you're talking about. I have more experience than you. I thought I had written down there was a better quote where that had kind of happened, but I guess I didn't, or I maybe wrote down the wrong page. But anyway, yeah. So it was just there was more one that was, it asked him how do you even know how long you've even been fighting and I believe it was when it was actually probably earlier now that I think about it when he first reported to the Nova Marines, and he was like I fought the whole time the Indominus Crusade with the Primarch. I'm not fresh. I'm not a fresh recruit. My skills are good. I've definitely killed the name of the Emperor. So, and so page 196 says, "Cool, welcome." That might have been. This might be. Oh yeah, this is the one I was talking about right here. So the cool welcome, as in it was a cold welcome. So. This lieutenant of the Nova Marines asks, do you have experience of battle? Asked the lieutenant. The question irritated Justinian. The lieutenant looked formidable, but Justinian was sure if they sparred, he would win. This was not the first time that he had encountered a cool welcome. We've been fighting with the Primarch on the Indominus Crusade for the last century. My cohort was awoken shortly after he arrived on Terra. We have plenty of combat experience, Lieutenant. The lieutenant relaxed. Good. There are stories about you Primaris Marines coming into battle straight out of stasis, and it has not always been successful. Even now, I hear it happening. There appears to be a nearly endless supply of your type. So again, a nearly endless supply of your type, so they keep getting them, they keep getting the reinforcements. So again, I think more proof that we will see these more and more as the mainstream. I do not think that is so, sir, said Justinian. He hid his irritation at the man. It was easy to do. He had plenty of experience of that as well. It seems that way, said the lieutenant. The rank was a new one to the chapters introduced in Guilliman's Nova Codex Astartes. I do not care how much training the hypnomat time you've had. nor for how long in the blood and fury, nor for how long. In blood and fury is a warrior forged. We have seen plenty of both, said Justinian. All right, forgive me. I have not yet fought by the Primaris Marine side. We are a chapter with deep roots and aversion to change. He pointed out Justinian's bolt rifle, but change can be good. I hear those things have a ranged advantage over our bolt guns. So yeah, then they kind of go into just like, oh yeah, my weapon, yeah. So they try to kind of ease it up a little bit. But anyway, I just found that kind of exchange back and forth was very interesting, and like as we've seen, the chapters, the regular Marines are not necessarily opening their arms and giving just these great hugs and just welcoming the Primaris Marines, no questions asked. There's some pushback from them, and as well as the Primaris are feeling still separated from their brothers. So another theory that's been kicked around a lot is like, is there going to be another civil war, like regular Space Marines versus Primaris Space Marines? Yeah, maybe, but I think more or less what this is potentially doing is opening the door for Primaris chaos. Because if they start feeling alienated and betrayed or ostracized by their regular brothers, we may find Primaris going over to chaos. So, yeah, we will. I guess we'll see. But there could also be kind of like, I've said this before as well. Like the whole Star Wars Order 66. Like they're gonna get to a point, and there's gonna be just so many Primaris Marines replaced everywhere, all over the place, and then finally Gilliman's gonna be like Order 66, and then just they turn on and kill all the regular Space Marines, Thunder Warrior style, and delete them from history in a way. So, all right, next up we have page 237. So jumping pretty far forward here, and that's mostly because that in between from in between there, there's like definitely a lot of the Titan stuff kind of popping up suddenly. But yeah, so page 237 we have the Grey Knights make an appearance, and it's interesting as they have a talk between Justinian and one of his other Primaris Space Marines in his squad, Maxine. These names kill me. We'll call him Max because it's like Maxentius Durantio Durantio. So Justin and Max are talking, anyway, so they see the Grey Knights and they say, "We have powerful allies." Justin pointed out out of the firing slit into the bailey, where silver armored warriors waited in the shadows. What do you think about these Grey brothers? Or what do you know about these Grey brothers? Not much, said Max. They call them Grey Knights. They're specialists, demon hunters, psychers. They keep themselves to themselves. It's best not to ask questions about them. That is all you know? Max nodded. Justin looked out again. Disappointing. That is all I know also. I have fought in 14 separate engagements alongside their chapter before. I have never spoken with one of them. Do you know what else? Edify me, said Max. I have never seen a single Primaris Marine among their formations. What do you think of that? As intriguing as these questions are, we are not the ones to answer them, said Max. Justinian looked at his second. We'll be wanting my sergeant's skull mark soon. We'll talk with talk like that. Anyway, so they just point out the Grey Knights, and they have a really interesting exchange, and they point out the fact that, they don't have any Primaris Marines. Like, what's up with that? Why can't they have Primaris? So I'm sure there may be some Grey Knight players out there that are like, yeah, why can't we have Primaris? But as of right now in the lore, they're keeping to that. They're sticking to Grey Knights or not getting Primaris. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, when Gilliman came back, he didn't necessarily know or realize that Grey Knights were even a thing. The Grey Knights was after his time, their chapter being established. So, page 238. So right over the next, I have no Brotherhood. Let's see here. His words appeal again and again to Brotherhood, said Justin. To Max, I confess, I do not feel it for these warriors. So he's referring to the Nova Marines and being there. It will come, said Max. His tone gave no indication of whether he suffered feelings of alienation like Justin. This is a noble chapter. Here Here is a third of their strength at this one redoubt, said Justin, aware he was straying into dangerous territory. How small it looks when compared to the unnumbered suns. Those days are gone, brother, said Max. The Lord Gilliman obeys his own law. He set down in his codex that no man shall command more than 1,000 space marines. He does, said Justin, but at what cost? That is his concern, not ours, said Max, the warning clear in his voice. How long have you been with the Nova Marines? Asked Justin. 4 standard years, said Max. Around 20 relative. The chapter travels a lot. And do you feel brotherhood for them? There was a pause. I understand what you're asking me, Brother Sergeant Paris, said Max carefully. Leaving the brotherhoods we had in the Unnumbered Suns, being seconded to chapters whose history we do not share, and who rightly look upon us as their replacements, it is hard for some. Is it hard for you, said Justin, hoping for some reflection of his own sorrow. Max turned to face Justin. In truth, I do not care. I have my duty. It was what I was made for. It was what I was made for. Where I do my duty is irrelevant to me. So there you have it. So that's that exchange I talked about earlier, where this Justin is really struggling with being with the Nova Marines, and obviously Max has found a way to at least accept his fate. If he did have those feelings or did feel alienated, he doesn't show it, but he has found a way to kind of push on with it. So, all right. So then we have 278. Now this one's just more of a funny thing, because if anybody knows, I am a huge Kakardon fan. I have the army of Kakardon, and definitely read the books that Robbie McNiven has made. They're great books. But I found this little jab here. So let's see here. Bolts exploded all around Typhus's men as the remaining Space Marines within the wall and ranged beyond the tanks of the Land Raider line fired at them. A single warrior fell. An eyeless Kakardon-toothed horror whose Terminator plate was held together by twists of rusting wire. So, what is the deal, man? Like, why you don't like the Kakardons? Why does he got to be like a Kakardon-toothed horror? Like, yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Like, I get, like, it's for the idea that, he's got, like, really sharp-looking shark teeth and stuff. This, whatever, Death Guard one they just killed, and he's been, so changed. But I just thought that was kind of funny. There's a little throw out there that they're like, oh, Kakardon teeth. And I'm like, what? Anyway, so, almost to the end here. Page 286. I found this interesting. It talks the Emperor protects, and we've all heard this saying, the Emperor protects, the Emperor protects. But this really lays it down in a way that I've not actually myself thought of, and I feel like a majority of people haven't, and it's very interesting. Where basically it says the Emperor protects does not mean what we think it means, and you can apply this to religions today. When people think of pain and suffering happening, and they ask where their God or their religion is in the world and how the suffering can happen, people, at least in here, it points out that just because you're praying, that doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't a plan for what's happening. And that, even though you're praying to live or for the Emperor to save you, as it describes in here, that doesn't mean that part of the plan isn't your sacrifice, because the Emperor protects. His goal isn't to save one human or one person. His goal is to save humanity, and in doing so, bad things are going to happen to people that may think they don't deserve it and probably don't deserve it, but the overall end goal is the savior of humanity. So, they said the Emperor protects, but most of the laity misunderstood the saying. They assumed the Emperor would protect them personally, but the Emperor's role was to safeguard the species. A single man meant nothing at all, though every event of every miserable human life howled out his truth. People still hoped, still prayed to the embattled God that he watch over them against all evidence. It was sad, hopeless. The knowledge would crush the spirit of every human being, even her, this is speaking of the Sister Superior, were it not for the miracles like the saint. And now that's what they're calling the girl. They think she may be a saint. The Emperor protects, she said, into the rumbling, jerking progress of the rhino, and she looked at the girl. So I found that very interesting. Like I said, that when they go into battle and they say the Emperor protects, that they're basically, of the people of the time are misunderstanding that doesn't mean that the Emperor is going to protect them personally. It just means the Emperor is going to protect humanity. So I found that very interesting. Page 322. Yes. So this is near the end battle on Gallatin, where the Nova Marines are, and Justin has been pinned. He was in a bunker, it exploded, he got pinned under rubble, and he got basically uncovered, buried out, or not buried out, but dug out. And so he just mentions this text. Alright, so there, you are free, and you have aid, said the Tech Marine. You have my many thanks, Justin said to the Tech Marine. He paused. Brother, he added. So I think that is added, and I like that because I think now that he has actually fought and shed blood with the Nova Marines, he's starting to feel a part of the chapter now. They've all suffered and fought side by side, which he had with the Unnumbered Sons, and he didn't have with the Nova Marines. So there's that disconnect, but now they have that connection. So I think right there is kind of proof that they are starting to come together. And then the final thing I want to point out, again, is pointing back to the whole Primaris being the mainstay moving forward. Page 328, I have balance of Primaris. So this is back after everything. Captain Sicker stood to attention and saluted as Gilliman walked out. Then he and his Victrix guard fell into line behind Colquhoun. The balance of Primaris Marines to Space Marines had shifted in the Guard. Those that had fallen in battle had been replaced by the newer breed. So here we see in the Personal Guard has even been replaced as well. So again, very interesting there. So but anyway, so I've only got about 4 minutes left of time on my my memory here, it looks like. So definitely worth a good. It's a good book, worth a read if you're into all this new lore coming out. But finally, since I got these last few minutes, I'm going to quick spit out the last kind of big spoiler. So right here in the video, thanks for watching. Check out the Facebook page and everything else. And if you want to stick around for this big spoiler, here it comes. So I'll give you a little bit of time. Okay, so the saint, the girl, is potentially the Emperor. Or at least he embodied her through this book. She ends up dying at the end after she saves Gilliman when he gets captured and basically gets him released. And he keeps asking her who she is, and she dies before she can really explain. But she does say with her dying breath that as she's looking on Gilliman, she mentions that he looks so much like the Emperor. Now this is a girl who's never seen the Emperor, never met the Emperor in person, but yet there's this entity that had taken her body and she was speaking with and was working through her, and yet she never really says who she is. Now the demons and stuff also see her coming, and they say, I can't remember, it was Anthema, which is the demon's name for the Emperor who is in the warp or something right now. So the Emperor is still around. His body may be dead on the throne, but he is becoming more of a forefront, so it seems. If it was truly him or not, they don't really ever confirm or not whether it was. So that's kind of the big spoiler thing. Very interesting. Another spoiler that I kind of left out that had to do with the Nova Marines is the Nova Marines Chapter Master gets killed by Typhus on Gallatin. He gets gutted, which is pretty shocking. But yeah, so I'll leave it with there. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please share your opinions and comments on what you think of the book if you read it down in the comments below. Please check out my Facebook page. Check out the rest of the channel, the rest of the videos I got going on. Please like, subscribe, share, all that. I greatly appreciate it. And until next time.